If you like, what is like one thing that kind of annoys me is when people say it annoys, I think, most Bitcoiners when they say, "Oh, Bitcoin is too slow," and it's like outdated now. You need faster technology, or you need I don't know, better privacy, or better this or better that. Uh, you know, the core innovation was digital scarcity, and that's what I was. It's a one-time invention, and there's no improvement on that. Everything else flows from that core innovation. um, and so I talk about, through history there's foundational inventions. Like the wheel is a foundational invention. You can make the wheel with wood or whatever, different, or rubber, and like whatever, like but the core innovation is the same. Like a magnetic compass, it was complete at the time of invention. Whereas, as you say, like a car went through various iterations along the way, and now it's like self-driving and electric cars. It's completely different. The cell phone like has gone through all kinds of iterations, right? The personal computer has gone through all kinds of innovations, and it will continue to advance. So I argue that many people, because Bitcoin is kind of in the technology bucket, they make the mistake of thinking that Bitcoin as well is like one of these inventions that you can constantly keep improving.
So, welcome to the 45th episode of the podcast Store of Bitcoin. And today we are joined by Vijay Selvam, the author of Principles of Bitcoin and a passionate Bitcoiner, the educator and advocate of sound money principles. Vijay has been deeply involved in the Bitcoin community, helping people understand not just how Bitcoin works, but why it matters in today's world of uncertain economics and centralized system. His work focuses on bridging the gap between technology and everyday users, promoting self-sovereignty, financial literacy, and the long-term vision of Bitcoin as a tool for global empowerment. Vijay, it's a pleasure to have you in the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And as always, we have Francesco, pleasure also with Francesco and Johan as a co-host.
Hello. Hello,
Hi.
everyone.
Firstly, I can start. I read your book this year, and it directly entered my top 10 list of books that I recommend to the people who want to know. The few people, retails, who this year told me I want to know about Bitcoin. It's really great also how you divide by economical part, technological part, self-sovereignty, and philosophical. That is also the most fascinating.
Thank
My
you. Thank you
my
for
first
reading it, and thank you for the kind words.
You're welcome. And first question will be, which was the biggest motivation behind that you to write this great book, Vijay?
Um, yeah, I think it was the journey that I went through myself. So I'm from the traditional financial world. I've spent the last 20, well, about 18 years in the financial services, and working at Goldman Sachs, Wall Street banks, and all of that. So when I first came across Bitcoin in 2013, I dismissed it, just like most people with my background. I said it was no intrinsic value. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's online gambling, and it's going to be shut down by governments. The usual tulip mania, all that kind of thing. Um, and then it took me several years of kind of first rejecting it, and then reluctantly starting to learn about it, and then really going down the rabbit hole. And in those days, I really, one of my biggest stumbling blocks was the absence of good resources to study and learn about Bitcoin. Today, there's plenty of resources out there, but I felt like one thing that was probably missing was that holistic analysis of Bitcoin. Because there's lots of economic analysis of it. Okay, it's a great investment opportunity. It's a great store of value. It's going to go up 10x. It's going to go to $1 million. So you should buy some Bitcoin. There's lots about that. And then there's separately lots of people talking about, oh, it's censorship resistant. It's human rights potential in, the developing world, authoritarian states. And there's all of that. And then lots of people have written about the technology, what's a blockchain, and, plenty of resources on that. But, I think to really appreciate and understand Bitcoin, you really have to bring it together. It's only, like the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So it's only when you bring them all together that you truly appreciate it. And so that was my endeavor, and that's what I sought out to do. And yeah, that's kind of the reason why I decided to do it.
Great, and we can see also from your background the touch from having being in the financial world, and I think this also will help orange pilling the new class of 2025, 26, 27 will be mostly people coming or listening to the financial world, or coming from the financial world or listening to the financial world.
Yeah, yeah.
I highlighted one profound sentence you wrote, and it is learning about Bitcoin is one of the most important things you can do for your future and the people and communities you care about. And Bitcoiners totally agree. Also, likely now with new joiners, they are interested for number go up. And it is what it is. Also for me, I joined 2017, was not by chance 2017 because the price was going up. But we are different in recommending. Firstly, we don't recommend investing. We recommend to study Bitcoin, and we recommend in a way that I think no other is recommending. Maybe some people say this stock, read it, may put 2%, this stock 3%, or this asset. We talk really that Bitcoin is the superior asset. So I think we are also different in this versus all the other who recommend anything else. But still, not many retailers they get this message. We are talking like study Bitcoin is the most important things you can do. Why do you think still, despite this strong message, retailers are not understanding it?
Yeah, look, I mean, I always say that the only thing more important than buying Bitcoin is studying Bitcoin, because if you just buy some Bitcoin and you don't know what it is, then you'll do the worst thing possible, which is sell the bottom, right? When the market goes down, like it went to $80,000, you bought it at $110,000, you're going to sell it, and then the worst thing happens: you get sidelined forever. You watch it going up, and you never want to get back in, and it's over. It's, in fact, if you were just a no coiner, you're better off, because maybe later on, you still have your money. But as a uninformed, uneducated Bitcoin holder, it's the worst place to be. So it's more important to study it than to actually buy it, is what I would say. In terms of why it's so hard, I think I've said a lot about this. There's many reasons for it. I think one is just that people are, you realize this. It was kind of a revelation to me that most people are followers. They don't, independent thinkers are very, very few in society. Most are followers, and we saw that during COVID, right? You just kind of you see that all around you. Few people have that kind of the willingness to ask those fundamental questions. Is this right or wrong? Or study something new. So so that, I think that's one thing. Most people are waiting for somebody else to tell them, oh, that smart guy thinks Bitcoin is good, so I should buy some. Or this smart guy thinks it's a Ponzi scheme, so I'm not going to touch it. Right? People are just followers. So that is one sort of problem, I would say. The second one, I think people are just very intellectually arrogant. If you've been successful in your traditional financial career or whatever, you've made lots of money, and then someone tells you that you've missed this great opportunity, you're going to be very defensive about it. So I think a lot of people are just not intellectually honest and humble enough to open their minds up to the prospect that they maybe missed it, right? They maybe missed something important here. So I think Bitcoin is the people who are the early adopters were people who are curious, people who are open-minded to possibilities, and people who are intellectually humble and intellectually honest. So I think Bitcoin favors those people. But everyone will come around at some point. It's a matter of time. Everyone buys Bitcoin at the price they deserve. So it will you might not be interested in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is interested in you. At some point, you will come to terms with that. So yeah, I think these are the biggest hurdles, I would say. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I totally agree. And as we said, everyone got Bitcoin at the price they deserve. But for me, it's also I always specify it's not when you first buy Bitcoin, the first portion, 1% is the price that you deserve. The price you deserve is when it becomes a significant chunk of your portfolio that
Yeah.
could make life-changing profit when you have 20-30%. So some they start at 200, but 30% will become at 500, and 500, and the average what they bought will be more the price they deserve, not the first $300 in Bitcoin, let's say.
Yeah.
Totally agree with your point.
Yeah.
Johan,
So
any question from you? Or yeah, let's go with you and then.
I will ask Vijay, what about your role now in Gemini? I think you work in the legal department as counsel, as you can see, but it's a big company. So, what insights do you have on the retail behavior coming from your work experience, also looking with other departments in board meetings? So, what did you experience, and can you share with us about the dynamics underlying the market that you have witnessed so far?
I mean, I think exchanges serve a very important purpose in allowing people to do the most important thing, which is acquire some Bitcoin, right? Um, and and so just kind of I think the biggest focus at Gemini is trying to make that journey as easy as possible, as secure as possible. If it's your initial first Bitcoin purchase, you buy it in the most seamless, friction-free manner, and then you can take it off and put it in your cold wallet or whatever. But it's that initial kind of acquisition. To your question about, I mean, I think we're, in terms of retail sentiment, I think we're in a real bear market right now. I mean, it feels like a bear market, right? It's crazy. The price is $90,000, but it feels like a really real bear market. It's when you go and you do when you look on for Google searches for Bitcoin, I think we're at one of the lowest points right now. Typically, what you see in a bear market, right? And that is, I think, one of the biggest indicators of retail sentiment and retail interest is, how many people are looking up buy Bitcoin or Bitcoin on Google. So, yeah, I really think we are far, far from, the kind of euphoria that we saw in 2021 or in the prior, bull market. So I think I'm quite optimistic about 2026, but yeah, let's see. I think all the whales that looked at their calendar and sold their Bitcoin thinking it's the beginning of the bear market. I think they're all going to be quite surprised and sidelined when the price goes back up without giving them the opportunity to buy again low and ride it up again. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I mean, this is the pressing issue at the moment, and I will not go further this topic because. But John, do you have any question for Vijay?
Yeah, so I was planning to ask this later on, but now we're talking about Gemini. Were you already at Gemini during like this chokehold 2.0? And are there things that you're noticing like differently currently with the current administration versus the other administration and the other SEC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. No, I wasn't at Gemini, but I was at another. So I left Goldman in 2021 after 11 years there, and I moved to a company called Equinix, which was the first Nasdaq listed crypto company, actually, even before Coinbase. So I was chief legal officer there. and then we unfortunately went through the full bear market, and the company ended up not making it through with all the scandals in the industry. Um, so I very much experienced it in that role. My life at Gemini has been like mostly on the up with new administration and new sentiment. So yeah, I mean it's a completely different environment now from what it was a few years ago under Gary Gensler. Yeah, I mean just being able to have bank accounts, banking partners. We were debanked like most of the
Yeah.
crypto industry. If you don't have fiat, on and off rails, you can't operate as an exchange. You can't help people, acquire their Bitcoin. So it was a very, very difficult period. But I think it's changed now. In many ways, it's swung to the other extreme now,
Mm.
which is also sometimes I get a little nervous about that, because then if you're 2 lakhs, then you're going to have another round of FTXs and scandals and
Yeah.
all of that, and then you go back to the other extreme, and it's sort of, I would much prefer a middle ground. So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely much better world, better environment now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I was questioning myself. You told that you dismissed Bitcoin in 2013 when you heard the first time. You talked about people adopting Bitcoin who are like intellectual, humble, and are open-minded. But did you? I also noticed a lot of people coming into Bitcoin when they experience pain. You know, when they experience that there something's off, that they might not have a bank account, or that they are debanked. Or did you experience pain um, when you when you
Mhm.
um, were open to Bitcoin again,
Sure.
or was it your own curiosity? So
Yeah.
was it like intrinsic, or was it
Sure.
forced upon you?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think like I believe that you never appreciate a solution if you don't understand the problem. And I think that's actually one of the, to your first question, Alessandro, like, why are people struggling to get Bitcoin? I think because a lot of people don't understand the problem.
Yeah.
So you need to experience the problem to appreciate the solution. As for me, so I was a lawyer on Wall Street in 2007, 2008. I've been a lawyer since 2004, 21 years. And so I worked on securitization, CDOs and CDSs and all of that caused the financial crisis. So I was right in the middle of it on Wall Street, working on bailout packages for Morgan Stanley and other financial institutions, doing restructurings of securitizations and all of that. So I witnessed firsthand the moral hazard and the systemic manipulation in the financial system in 2008 when I was, working in New York. So on the back of that, I became a gold bug. So Bitcoin didn't exist. Well, it did exist, but I hadn't heard about it in 2008 or 2009. So I just bought a lot of gold, and I became a gold bug. But unfortunately, gold just didn't perform for that entire decade. But yeah, that was one experience that I had. I'm originally from India, and I've experienced how the state can abuse monetary power. I'm sure you're aware of the demonetization. You might have seen that in the news in 2016 when the government of India just made certain denominations of notes just invalid overnight. Um, so that kind of, you can look it up. It's kind of a pretty crazy
Okay.
incident.
Mm.
That kind of power should not be wielded by anyone. It should be, money should be something that evolves from the market. It should, you shouldn't be able to just flick a switch on and off and turn people's hard-earned money and savings to become valueless, unless they go and they do all these processes to switch it with a new note and blah blah blah, which many people are just not able to do. If you're an old woman, in living alone, you can't do these things. It is a total calamity. But yeah, I mean, I've experienced that as well. So I would say, yeah. So to answer your question, I had experienced these things in my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
One. Oh yeah. Okay. You go. You go.
no, 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 thanks. Now, on this point, because maybe you witnessed big games on the securitization, how to make the market of the big assets. So you can help us to understand what is missing for Bitcoin to become the big asset. Like, because your recent post, you say that the whales which were dumping is not that bad because they are moving capital in a way where other can step in and by doing that they decentralize their ownership. So is this the same thing that happened with all of the funds you imagine you've seen being born? And gold is still a bit far from market cap standpoint, especially in the last rise, after the last rise. So if you ever make a comparison with gold, which is the closest asset to the digital gold of Bitcoin, what is really missing to catch up for Bitcoin, in your opinion, to become a big asset as
It's
should
just
be?
understanding. It's just people understanding what it is. Kind of. I sometimes have this conversation with some Bitcoiners. Like, how many people do you think really understand Bitcoin in the world? Like, really understand it? It's not 100 million people. Say 100 million people own, or whatever, 150 million people own Bitcoin. That's just like $5 in Bitcoin that they got as some reward when they opened their account or whatever, right? People who really understand it, I don't know. Like, I mean, I think it's definitely less than 50,000, maybe even less than 10,000 people who really, really deeply understand it, right? That is out of 8 billion, over 8 billion people. So, it's literally nothing, right? So I think that journey of understanding and, it needs to permeate the psyche of humanity, of society, and that takes time. So that's what's missing. That's the biggest thing that's missing. But once you get it, then you look at gold and you ask yourself, okay, you study monetary history, you study the gold standard, and you see, okay, these were gold's strengths. It's scarce. Scarcity is its biggest strength. Durability, fungibility, and so on. These are its monetary properties. But it failed because, and paper currency was introduced, fiat was introduced because it's not portable, it's not divisible, it's not verifiable. These were the biggest problems, and that's why paper currency was introduced to solve these problems. And the moment you introduced, gold and paper, there's trust in the middle, and the trust is abused, right? So you understand that Bitcoin, so it improves on gold's strength, which is scarcity, and it solves all of these other monetary property problems that gold had. And to top it all, it is unconfiscatable or confiscation resistant. Like, gold was confiscated in 1933, 31, 33, but yeah, 33, I think. The Order 6102, when FDR ordered all gold of American citizens to be confiscated. You can't do that with Bitcoin, right? So yeah, it takes time. You need to understand these things to appreciate it. But once you put in the work, it's clear as black and white, right? So ultimately the truth will prevail. It's just a question of time for that to people to really get it. Yeah.
Yes, also gold took a long time to now it's all-time high, but when you bought it, it didn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, also a factor of age because yes, at the end of the day, that gold is scarce. People still have to trust. They have to trust somebody telling them that it's scarce. So same on Bitcoin, they can verify and it's better. But even for people of a certain age who cannot verify because they don't know how to literally audit the blockchain, and so they still have to trust the narrative. So and to study it. So it's almost the same thing. Even if it's a digital, it's not a problem because it still catches up with the value proposition as it was for gold, and the only question is when. But it's like slowly getting there.
Yeah.
From my side, you are even more conservative than me on how many people have a good understanding on Bitcoin. I was thinking about 100,000. You say maybe less than 50,000 or even less than 10,000. So
Yeah. Yeah.
0.0001% of the population. Yeah.
I mean, you ask yourself, like, I mean, I've been in this industry for, 5 years now. I don't like calling it an industry, but anyway, it's just Bitcoin, I think. But anyway, you ask yourself how many people you've spoken to, and and how many of them really understand Bitcoin, right? And then you further correct and say that the people you speak to are still kind of in the crypto space,
Yeah.
right? Broader society is much, much bigger. So, I mean, yeah, it is tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people. Yeah.
Definitely, yes, less than maybe 50 or 100, 100,000.
Yeah.
On the topic where Johan was saying about the pain, I think now, especially in the West world, the biggest reason why people now will join from now on, it will be because of a pain, but it will be the pain of missing out on Bitcoin. Because now it's in every single financial journal, or there will be a comparison with Bitcoin. After the ETFs, it became, I always say, it went from the child table to the adult table in
Mm.
Christmas for people in the traditional world. And now everyone should compare also their portfolio versus Bitcoin portfolio. So if it will keep performing good, I also think 2026 will be green. At one point, they will want to stop to suffering the consequence or not being exposed on Bitcoin. We don't know when, but it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I think, it's a matter of time. Yeah, it's just going to keep performing. It's going to keep, returning if you just, all you have to do is, I tell people, look at the 4-year moving average, the
Same.
200-week moving average, and it has never, ever gone down. It's never, every single day it goes up,
Yes.
right? So, and if you're a young person, you need to just take, you should be taking a 5-year or maybe 10-year horizon on your investment. So just put it in and take a 4-year or plus view, rather than looking at it every 5 minutes and panicking, and you should just yeah just be mature about it, and take a long-term view.
But I think also this simplicity is also a problem to have new joiners, because we studied hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, and at the end we come with a simple solution: buy and hold.
Right.
And for people, just buy and hold and do nothing
Right.
is so frustrating for many. They
Yeah.
think the guy who is talking about PA ratio, revenue, discounted cash flow, new economy growing, it's so knowledgeable that it should be right. And the others say, buy and hold, study Bitcoin, buy and hold. That's it for
Yeah.
years. People think, oh, that guy is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe this simplicity is also a problem
Yeah.
on us that we have to communicate. It's too simple for some.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. And also another big problem, I think, is the unit
Yeah.
price bias, right? I mean, the number of times I hear almost on a daily basis,
I'm
like,
too late.
yeah, no, but just like, it's too expensive.
Too expensive,
It's
yes.
too expensive is, I think now it's probably the most common reason I've heard recently is it's too expensive. And so I'm going to go into some other shitcoin that is, 5 cent, whatever, 1/5 of a cent or something like that. And, it's really, really terrible. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to deal with that, to be honest.
Yeah. If you don't know that you work for exchange, you could change the parameters with
Yeah,
the
so
association. Yeah.
Yeah, so Square has done that in the US, right? The Jack Dorsey company. I think it's now been rolled out in like hundreds of thousands of stores in the US, like recently, which is a really big move, enabling Bitcoin payments on Square. But I think, at least from all the screenshots that they post on Twitter, they actually have Sats. So he's made the switch to Sats, I think, which is quite helpful. But it's a tough one, because if you switch it, then it's also kind of like, all the critics will jump on that and they will say, "Oh, you see, you guys have completely like rugged everybody by kind of." So it's a kind of a difficult decision, I think. Yeah.
Do you have a question, John, for him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, I
So
can change it. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to get back to Vijay's point about understanding. So what is the problem to really appreciate the solution? And we were in Lugano and we spoke to Joe Bryan. But if I were to ask you, what is the problem? What's your answer? And what is the solution to that problem? What would be your answer?
The problem is the world being on a centrally planned, discretionary monetary policy. So central planning is a creation of, it's socialism. It's, Karl Marx and, Lenin and, it's their ideologies is what, anything centrally planned is, as opposed to free market. And Austrian economics, Karl Menger, the father of Austrian economics, said that money is not a creation of the state. Money is something that evolves naturally in the free market. And it is what has the best monetary properties, which are what we talked about: scarcity, portability, divisibility, verifiability, fungibility, durability, history. And then you can add on unconfiscatability and censorship resistant and permissionlessness and so on. It's the asset that has all of these, the best performing on all these monetary properties naturally emerges as the best monetary asset in the free market. That's the key point. It's a free market. What we have now is not a free market. It is centrally planned, discretionary. And as we know through history, whenever there is discretion, whenever there is power to have discretion over something, it is abused, because humans always abuse power. We always know that power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And so that is it. I mean, that is the problem. What is the problem? That is the problem. And the ramifications and repercussions of that problem are inflation, consumerism that we see, and the waste, the destruction and annihilation of the environment through overconsumption, resulting from over leveraged spending, because you have to keep that hamster wheel turning, the fiat hamster wheel turning. It leads to what they call basically architectural, buildings are built, planned obsolescence, it's what it's called. So planned obsolescence is a phenomenon of consumerism, where you don't build buildings to withstand the test of time, like hundreds or thousands of years. You no longer build pyramids, you no longer build amazing cathedrals like you see all across Europe. You no longer build great temples or whatever to withstand thousands of years. You build something that will last until it becomes unfashionable 10 years from now, right? You see that in the quality of your food. So there's all of these manifestations of consumerism all around you, where real value is depleted from society, and it results in the destruction and annihilation of culture and civilization and society. So those are the repercussions that you see from a discretionary, centrally planned money.
Yeah. I just love the fact that we can really boil, because I asked the question because this is, I think, how we can orange pill people and really to get to that core problem. And Joe Bryan, he made that movie about, what is the problem. He said the solution is just separate money of state, period. Yes. And it's the red button. And you also alluded to power, people will abuse the power that they have. And we also talked with Pascal Heugli, and he also studied philosophy. And we were also talking about the Lord of the Rings, that the human couldn't destroy the ring in Mount Doom because they were too tempted to, even though they had the right intentions. But if they come to that point that they may get that power for themselves, they will choose it. So they will push the red button from the movie
Yeah, yeah,
from Joe Bryan. So I
yeah.
love it, and I love the basically the simplicity to explain that the power will be abused, and we need to separate money and state to prevent them from ever having that
Hmm.
possibility or
Yeah,
having that opportunity. And
yeah. And the biggest repercussion, I mentioned consumerism, I mentioned inflation, but actually I left out the most important, the biggest one, which is war.
inequality. Oh, war.
Wars
Yeah.
are fought through inflation, financing. It's the hidden theft. If you have a manifest, you go out and you try to tax a society to spend on a forever war. You're not gonna stay in power. People will not vote for you. They're not gonna be okay with the tax. But when you secretly steal it from them by printing money, nobody realizes it, and that enables you to finance forever wars. um, so I think that, I mean, there's lots been written about that. I mean, I have a chapter on that, but also like Saifuddin has written a lot about that. Lynn Alden has written about that as well in Broken Money. And I mean, I think that is the biggest, I mean, the most real, um, you know repercussion. Yeah.
Yeah. So one last question from my side, and then I'll pass it on, because while you were telling, I'm taking notes, and you were talking about the durability of buildings and that we need to build, we need to build products to last forever or
Mhm.
as long as possible, and not only for a couple of years,
Yeah.
and then just to that's the consumerism. And I thought about two things. I thought about the Mercedes. They built in the 80s like one of the best automobiles on earth. Like they're still driving around. They were
Yeah.
over engineered. They were built to last. I love it. But also
Yeah.
I was thinking about Michael Saylor, and I saw you in Bitcoin in Amsterdam. I didn't have the time to go to you, but I know you have an opinion or also involved with Bitcoin treasury companies, and
Mhm.
I think Saylor wants to build a a company or an organization that will last for 1,000 years with backed by Bitcoin. Do you agree with that assessment?
Sure. I mean, I don't. I'm not. I was on a panel in Amsterdam which talked about, is institutional adoption good or bad for Bitcoin. It was after the Bram one. It was in the afternoon on that day. Um, I think it's a natural process of adoption, and like I said on the panel, like Hal Finney, if you look, he has this quote from 2011 where Hal Finney talks about Bitcoin banks. He says that maybe the natural end result is for these institutions, basically like like strategy, it holds a lot of Bitcoin, and then kind of it becomes a bank, and it issues a layer two or something like that for people to transact in. I have no problem with that. I mean, as long as there is an option, right? You can take. No one's stopping you. You can always. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. Whether
Yeah.
you like it or not, whether someone is screaming on Twitter saying, "Oh, you shouldn't," censor, you shouldn't put it in a Bitcoin treasury companies are bad, nobody cares, right? That's the beauty of Bitcoin. You can do. It is what you want it to be. You can use it however you want. No one can tell you that, no, that's not how you use Bitcoin, this is how you use it. Like, that's not how it works. So there's always the option. If you want to put it in a treasury company, sure, go ahead. Maybe you make a higher return on that. But if the US government suddenly decided to send some tanks and their military over to Michael Saylor's offices and take over the private keys, your Bitcoin is gone, it's confiscated, right? So that's on you. So if you want to take that risk, that's up to you. maybe have some, the majority of your Bitcoin in cold storage or some other, custodian, and have a little bit in a Bitcoin treasury company or whatever. That's
Yeah.
everybody is, to each his own, right?
Yeah, but that's from an investor's perspective. But I think Michael also talks about from the like the founder perspective, and they really try to, like, from their perspective, it's very logical to add Bitcoin to your balance sheet just to make it more robust. Not per se to be a public traded company and to raise more capital, but just like as a entrepreneur, as a founder, you can strengthen your company to last forever. I think that's the thing that
Yeah,
I wanted to point to, and I think that's
yeah,
also alludes to your point about building for the future, and not only on fiat. That's I think it's all coming back to the time preference on a Bitcoin standard and on a fiat standard. But I've
yeah.
talked too long. I will give it back to Francesco.
I have a question for pure Bitcoiners here. But before to go to the question, I want to remind to our listeners that this podcast is brought to you by Bitvault. Bitvault.sv is the first wallet solution to solve the problems of physical attacks and hacks, thanks to our time delay over multi-sig technology. It's like a timed vault. You put your Bitcoin on and can only move after a certain time delay. Nobody can do otherwise. And I invite you to head over to the bitvault.sv website, and you'll find all of the information. There is a special offer running today. Thank you. So the question is, you as a legal person, the everlasting ongoing debate about spam filtering, all of these things. So recent position, maybe a tweet I read that you could say that, in your opinion, the fact that somebody can filter spam is not very good because that prevents plausible deniability. But there is also the argument which you can find in some Bitcoin posts of Satoshi Nakamoto, which is saying that there were some filter already back then because the monetary use is not negotiable. So what do you think? First of
Yeah.
all, is that a real concern from a legal standpoint of hosting a CSIM on your node, or it's worth to filter, in your opinion?
No, I don't think there's a clear answer to this, and I think that's why. So I was against the core, version 30 change in the limit. I didn't think that it needed to be changed from the 80 kb limit. So in that respect, I'm in favor of filters, I guess. But I'm also, I think the moment some of the people, advocating for filters started turning it into, oh, this is all going to be CSAM, and somehow, I felt like those arguments were completely disingenuous and misleading. When you are, because you can't stop it. That's the point. You cannot stop those things without reducing Bitcoin's censorship resistance. There's no way to do it, because you can always just publish a fake public key and include arbitrary data in there. So this whole notion that somehow, okay, one camp is going to completely eliminate all spam, and then core doesn't want to eliminate spam, I think is a completely false narrative. And I think, unfortunately, most plebs, the masses, just think that, okay, not all these guys they want to eliminate spam completely, and they are able to, and then core is saying, no, 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 we want the spam. It's a complete lie. And so I was trying to argue that nobody can eliminate spam. It's not possible. So if you put in place a filter, then, the next day or a week later, they're going to find some other way to include arbitrary data, into blocks. And in the worst case, you can always, all this discussion about filters, by the way, is mempool policy. It's what nodes do when they transmit data, right? You can always circumvent that and send it directly to a miner and get it into a block. Okay. And this is what I think I tweeted like subsequently, like you I mean, yeah, I don't have to spend too much
Yeah, I
time
say
on
that
it.
it's there is the plausible deniability, meaning that if you filter it, it's worse because you have no excuse if you host a CSIM. So because you're willing to want to do it's better there isn't filter, there aren't filters because as you said, it's a free use
I
and
mean, that argument, I must temper that a little bit, because filters don't really filter for content. They can filter for size of the data, but they can't tell, okay, this is an image, this is not, or this is good, or this is bad. So, I mean, it's arguable that my tweet was a little bit overstated in that, like, I say that it shows editorial power, but it's maybe that was an overstatement. Maybe it's not really. If you filter, it doesn't necessarily show editorial power. But here's the one point that I'll make. How does arbitrary or illegal content get on a blockchain? There's two ways it can happen. Okay, one way is just like casual spam, just like random stuff, people just spamming the blockchain for fun or whatever, right? And then the other way is someone who wants to attack Bitcoin, okay, by putting CSAM or something illegal, really illegal, confidential or whatever on the blockchain. Okay, they are malicious, motivated bad actors. Okay, the first one, there's no real legal problem there. Maybe there's some illegality, but no one's going to just casually throw some dangerous, illegal stuff on there. It's going to be category 2. Now, category 2, there is no filter that can stop such a person, because if they will have the money to pay for it, they will go directly to a miner and they'll get it into a block. So no filter can stop those guys. So this whole debate, I think, is completely like redundant and nonsensical, because I don't like it's a it's kind of like a straw man kind of situation. Like you've created this kind of thing, but it's not even like you can do anything about it.
yeah, but can you help me as a legal person? I mean, if this material lands my node and I'm an American citizen, and the fact that I unwillingly downloaded the material because it's part of the network doesn't make me guilty, because to be guilty, I should willingly do something. So
That's a strong argument as well. I mean, again, people will disagree. I don't think it's been tested, but I would argue that for criminal liability, you need intention. You need to show that the prosecution will have to show that you at least viewed it, or you intended to view it, or you had some explorer, viewing software to decode it or something like that. If you're just like it's just flowing through your node, I don't really think that. But it's untested. But the bottom line is that we shouldn't we can't be cowering and worrying about who's going to come after us. I think it's a censorship resistant, permissionless protocol. You can't ensure that spam doesn't get on there. So I think we just got to move on and stop obsessing over it.
Yeah, what was a bit letting down was the lack of possibility to the core team to have a proper debate, because they abandoned some users. It's not a good deal. But yeah, at the end of the day, after 40 years of the internet, I still receive spam every day, and I don't know the stuff. So yeah, I know that is impossible, but the attitude and try to make as little as possible, I would say, is the best thing here. Okay, that was the technical question.
Sure.
We are approaching now 50 minutes, so likely will be our last question, Vijay. Another good point now on your book, a very good point that I liked, it was on Bitcoin being an innovation, but you divide in two kinds of innovation. One is not improvable and maximal from the beginning, and one is improvable, like cars or airplanes. Because sometimes we say Bitcoin is the biggest innovations. People think like the airplane or the car or the engine, but then it was improved through the years, so they look like, okay, then will be the next Bitcoin. But then you say, no, that's the differentiation. It would be great if you can elaborate for our listeners.
Yeah, I came up with this. I didn't I after a lot of thinking and introspection kind of thing. I came up if you what is like one thing that kind of annoys me is when people say it annoys, I think, most Bitcoiners when they say, "Oh, Bitcoin is too slow," and it's like outdated now. You need faster technology, or you need I don't know, better privacy, or better this or better that. Uh, you know, the core innovation was digital scarcity, and that's what I was. It's a one-time invention, and there's no improvement on that. Everything else flows from that core innovation. And so I talk about, through history, there's foundational inventions, like the wheel is a foundational invention. You can make the wheel with wood or whatever, different, or rubber, and like whatever, but the core, innovation is the same. Like a magnetic compass, it was complete at the time of invention. Whereas, as you say, like a car went through various iterations along the way, and now it's like self-driving and electric cars. It's completely different. The cell phone has gone through all kinds of iterations, right? The personal computer has gone through all kinds of innovations, and it will continue to advance. So I argue that many people, because Bitcoin is kind of in the technology bucket, they make the mistake of thinking that Bitcoin as well is like one of these inventions that you can constantly keep improving. And sure, I'm not talking about you can improve some kind of taproot programmability, or you can do covenants and different kinds of, or you can improve, you can make it quantum resistant and those things. But the incentive structure that came together to create digital scarcity, that is at the heart of it, and that is a path dependent one-time invention, and there's no real room for incremental improvements upon that point, which is digital scarcity. So yeah, that was the point I was trying to make.
Thanks to explaining. And also here, I think it's also, I take now this when people ask about Bitcoin and crypto, so it will help people to understand that
Yeah.
the next Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and there is no, but there are still many misinformation. But I think that we are seeing more hope. In the last weeks, I see many altcoiners or shitcoiners talking that the alt season is really horrible, and someone was saying, you were in altcoin because you didn't want the 200-400% improvement in Bitcoin in few years. It was too low, and now you are with minus 50%. So people are starting to learn.
Yeah. But they'll keep getting burned, though. That's just
Yes,
how it is.
I
Yeah.
see more and more today. I don't know if you saw in X was a post of one guy in Reddit that said I had like 3.3 Bitcoin, considering my Bitcoin altcoin portfolio, and I lost 2 Bitcoin because Polkadot went down 80%, and asking what to do. So there will be more. The truth, as is also with Bitcoin, the truth at one point will come up.
Yeah. I
Just
agree.
have to wait.
Yeah.
Okay, I think now we are approaching the end. I wanted to say thanks, Vijay. It was great to have you here. Always very deep insight from you. I recommend all the listeners to read Principles of Bitcoin from him. It's one of the top books that people can read. Also recommend, especially for people coming from the financial world or who listen a lot to the financial world before making a location. Maybe last but not least, where can people find you?
Maybe Twitter. Vijay Selvam is my handle. That's probably the easiest. Yeah.
Okay, we will also promote when we will come out with the video of this podcast.
Thank
Thanks
you.
also to Francesco and Johan to be here as always as co-hosts.
Thank you, guys.
And
Thank you, guys.
see you in the next episode in 1 week. Bye all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.